Well, I was born in the West Indies, an island called Montserrat. My family is from an island called St. Kitts. My dad was pastoring on the island of Montserrat when I was born, and lived there for just a short time before we moved to the U.S.
He was someone else because the posters on the wall, they don't look like a him at all.
My parents were furthering their education, and we moved up here, lived in Michigan, lived in Alabama for a little while, and then pretty much grew up in New York City from 4th grade on. I mean, everywhere you go, there's every shade, every nationality, every language. As a matter of fact, I'm being scheduled to do some musical events there in June, and the church organization that is sponsoring it, they have all these statistics. They said there are 800 different languages spoken in New York City. Yeah, 800 different languages. And so, you know, there's no such thing as any place in the world that's more of a melting pot than that. So I think it shapes how you look at race relations.
It up, he tucks it in, he pulls it back and gives a grin, laughing at himself because he knows he ain't loved it all. He gets his courage from the can and makes him feel like a man because he's loving all the ladies, but the ladies don't love him at all.
And kind of shaped my view on life, being able to see all those different places. Growing up, because my first 4 years of elementary school were at an all-black school, so you know, it's just what it was. You know, when I went to 5th grade and I was in New York, there were other people who weren't like me, but there were a lot of other people who were. So you had, Puerto Ricans, and you had, Asians, you had Caucasians, African Americans. Yeah.
So being different was the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and then after high school, went to University of Maryland, which is in College Park, Maryland, right outside of D.C., and that's pretty much where I lived for my adult life until I moved to Nashville.
'Cause when he's not drunk, he's only stuck on himself, and then he has the nerve to say he needs a decent girl. She was someone else because the body of the dollar don't.
Well, I mean, you're a product of your environment. A lot of what we did growing up and even as an adult has always been somewhat centered around church life. And so because of that, all the things that we do and the things that our kids do have that kind of spin. Our churches tend to be not as diverse as perhaps they should be. But I think there's a reason for that, and I understand the reason for it. It's really a cultural thing, a stylistic thing, more so than a racial thing. When I go to church, I want to hear a certain kind of music or a certain style of preaching, and so that's why our churches are less diverse. But our kids go to very, very diverse schools, and we expose them musically to all different styles and colors. Another professor here in the department. We both have kids that are around the same age, and both of us were saying, she's Caucasian, both of us were saying that we never identify, for our 3.5-year-old kids, we never identify other people by their race. Because we don't want them to ever think that that's how you identify somebody. So the kid in the green shirt, or the one with the braided hair, or whatever, that's how you identify that. Because what you're planting a seed that's going to be the tree of future race relations. You know what? This is really interesting. I find that in social settings, business/social settings, because of the fact that as I go up higher and higher in my career, I'm one of the few who look like me. the biggest advantage of that is people get to know who I am very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very quickly. And so I kind of stand out for someone to identify. Oh yeah, that's Lauren. Opposite. There's not that much diversity in my career either, but it's the opposite type. So, as I've noticed over the years, the further I've advanced in my career, the less diverse it is. I remember when I was my last position, when I was in administration at a university. You go to these big meetings and there are 20 or 30 or 40 people around the table, and there might be one other person who looks like me. So that's something that there's still some ground to be made up in those areas. What I think, if you were to say, who am I? I'm a communicator. That's what I do. I communicate, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's on the stage, whether it's with the written word, whether it's with the spoken word. I write songs, whatever it is. Everything that I do is really centered around communication. And so there's a very clear thread between that world of journalism and that world of teaching and that world of being a musical songwriter and performer. Because at the end of the day, your objective is to communicate whatever it is you want that other person to get. And that thing might be, what is a legal concept? You're trying to communicate that. Or it might be, what is a story that you're writing in journalism? Or it might be, what is some spiritual concept if you're writing a Christian song. At the end of the day, it all comes back for me to just communication.
When I was growing up, a lot of the albums I listened to had themes. And you'd go from song 1 to song 10 or 11 or 12, and there'd be a common thread running throughout. And this album is one of those albums. The name of it is Fall on Me, but throughout there are themes of this rain falling or the Spirit coming down. The title song, Fall on Me, has a line that says, Jesus, whatever you want from me, I just want you to walk with me, want you to talk with me, make my life gives birth to the lyrical ideas. No matter what strain or stress you find yourself in, ultimately, if you're obedient to God and you just say, Lord, wherever you want me to be, whatever you want me to do, you guide me, just let your Spirit fall on me. I'm happy to go where you want me to go. And I think that's the context and the subtext that I take out of making this record. So whatever you want me to do, that's what I'm going to do.
I think that one of the most important things that you can have as an individual and that you can teach your kids is confidence. And when our kids first started school, they went to a very small Christian school that was very 90% African American. And because of that small nurturing and sameness of environment, I think they were able to get a certain level of confidence at the very beginning of their educational careers. Now they're in schools where they're the minority, but that confidence has already been built.
Has changed with them.
Exactly. So now they're not in a position where they ever feel as though they can't do anything. I think that's key for what I've done for my own career as well. I've been able to build it step by step to the point where it's not like I don't have moments when I have doubt, and I'm my harshest critic in a lot of ways. But when I kind of step back from over critiquing myself, I do allow myself to recognize that I am good at what I do. And so that confidence flows out.
Because he knows he ain't loved it all. He knows he ain't loved it all.
I was just reading something maybe an hour or so ago. It's an excerpt from a book that I'm planning on reading. And it's sort of a historical perspective of what race, so to speak, but mainly being black over the last 3,000 years and how it has progressed. And there was an interesting quote, not a quote, but an interesting line in this little intro that I wrote, that I read, and it said that racial identification of people did not really become the norm until 300 years ago. Prior to that, that was not the primary way that people were identified. People might have been identified with class structure, or there might have been free and slave, but slaves or free were not based on race.
Yeah.
You know, so I think we kind of, you know, obviously screwed up over the last 300 years, and the way out of it, I think, is as the real racist theorists die off, you know, there's a change, and you can see it in your generation, for example. There was a change in my generation. There was you know, my parents' generation, not as much. The U.S. had a lot of, you know, racial issues in the 50s and 60s and so on. But now you see far more integration in all kinds of ways. Relationships, interracial relationships. It wasn't until 1967 that you were allowed to intermarry. You know,
That's crazy.
Yeah, you know, that's my lifetime. You know what I mean? So, but I think now when you look around at you know, kids hanging out in the mall with each other, you've got white rappers and black rock stars, you know,
Yeah.
black country artists, you know, not as many as you'd like to see, but
it's a start.
there's a start.
Yeah.
And I want to believe that if we had the same conversation 10 years from now, it would be even better. I think you start with the things that we have in common. What is it that you like? If there's something that you like that I also like, then we have a place where you start. Whenever I do speaking engagements from time to time, colleges or other organizations, and I always like to kind of start off with some kind of story, and then kind of segue into something that I know will cause the audience to relate to me. You know, what is it that this audience has in common? Oh yeah, I went to school in Huntsville, Alabama too, and in fact, my first classroom was right down the, you know, and
Yeah.
then they're like, oh, you know, so they might be 20 years younger than me, but they feel like they have something in common with me, and so it works the same way with race relations. What do we have in common? What is it that, you know, you and I can agree on? Maybe we agree on political issues. Maybe we both feel as though, you know, we should be, global warming is the most important thing in the world. Well, let's start on that, and then you know, everybody's not going to be the same on every issue, nor do you want them to be. But you find out what the connections are and build on those. Because you have to live in it to see from it, right? And one of the things that I see from the seat that I sit in is that when you are really great at something, it transcends race. Right? Michael Jordan transcends race. Nobody, there's, you know, unless you're just a total bigot, right? Nobody looks at Michael Jordan and says, oh, I don't like him because he's black, right? Nobody looks at. I was looking at there was I was watching a sports show the other day, and they were showing the top 10 female golfers in the world, and I want to say like 7 or 8 of them were from South Korea, right? So if you're a golfer, and let's say you follow female golf, you're not gonna say, oh, I don't like that golfer because she's from Korea. Man, she's good. So it transcends her race or her nationality. A great musical artist, Michael Jackson, transcended race. And that's what I think, at the end of the day, excellence. Excellence makes people stand up and say, wow, I like that. I want to be like that. I want to associate with that quarterback, that singer, that musician, whatever. Because at the end of the day, it generates, everybody wins from that. If I'm a great musician and you're a part of the company that signs me, then I'm making money from you, right? So you love me, right? because of me, you're living in a nice house down the street, right? So, you know, they don't see black, they don't see white, they see green, right?
Looking at himself but wishing he was someone else, because the posters on the wall, they don't look like a him at all. So he ties it up, he tucks it in, he pulls it back and gives a grin, laughing at himself because he knows he ain't loved at all. He gets discouraged from the can and makes him feel like a man, because he's loving all the ladies, but the ladies don't love him at all. Cause when he's not drunk, he's only stuck on himself, and then he has the nerve to say he needs a decent girl. Looking at herself but wishing she was someone else, because the body of the dollar don't look like hers at all. So she straps it on, she sets it into those